Hello, my name is Lori Breland. I have a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. I am a NCC, which is a National Certified Counselor, and I also am licensed as a Clinical Mental Health Counselor Associate. And I would like to talk with you about our brain. The frontal lobe also assists us in anticipating consequences of our actions, and it also aids in the planning of future actions as well. The only downside of the frontal lobe is it's the slowest part of our brain to fully develop. The frontal lobe is not considered mature until someone hits their mid-20s. That means anything that we do as a young person, such as substances, brain damage, anything like that, can cause trauma to the frontal lobe, and that can hinder progression as it's continuing to mature. The frontal lobe is involved in our higher cognitive functions. In a nutshell, the frontal lobe controls our thinking, planning, and short-term memory. When the frontal lobe becomes damaged, it causes issues and inabilities such as people's ability to make moral decisions, difficulties with planning, executive functioning and attention, loss of memory, sudden and dramatic changes in someone's personality, declining intelligence, since it is based off of experiences in education, changes in emotion, including signs of depression and anxiety, changes in motor skills and reasoning abilities, and also a range of specific syndromes. The cerebrum accounts for 2/3 of the total weight of the brain. Because it is considered the largest part of the brain, which is divided into two halves, each half contains 4 lobes. The cerebrum controls emotions, hearing, vision, personality, and so much more. It controls all voluntary actions. Upper motor neurons in the primary motor cortex send their axons to the brain stem and spinal cord to synapse on the lower motor neurons, which innervate the muscles. Brain injuries to the cerebrum, and including diseases, can affect how the cerebrum functions, and by extension, can impact the way you think, move your body, or feel sensations. The parietal lobe interprets sensory information such as touch, pressure, temperature, and pain. It also is involved with language comprehension. If you have right parietal lobe damage, this can impede your ability to care for yourself because it will undermine your ability to notice and or care for at least one part of your body or one side of your body. Gertzmann syndrome is a cluster of symptoms resulting from damage to your left parietal lobe. And people with this syndrome often struggle with writing, arithmetic, language, and the ability to perceive objects. Through the degree and extent of damage varies from person to person and the type of injury. When there is damage to the left and right brain parietal lobes, this is called a condition of Ballient's syndrome, which impedes motor skills and visual attention. Okay, so before we continue, I just want to do a quick review. This is your frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, temporal lobe. This is your cerebellum, and then this is your spinal cord. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the medulla oblongata, which is located right here, right above the spinal cord. The medulla oblongata controls breathing, heartbeat, and other automatic functions. It is also responsible for sending messages from the brain to the spinal cord. Okay, so now we're going to talk about pons. Pons is located right here, right above the medulla oblongata. medulla oblongata. My apologies. Pons are responsible for sending sensory information between the cerebrum and the cerebellum. It also wakes you up from sleep and triggers dreaming. Pons also serves as a communication system between the two hemispheres. The corpus callosum, right here in the center, connects both sides of the brain and is responsible for the communication between the two sides. That basically means that if there's stimulation on one side of your brain, then there's also going to be stimulation on the other side, roughly in the same area. Okay, so that leads us to the thalamus, which is right here. And the thalamus acts like a transmitter, sending sensory information, excuse me, and relaying this information to other parts of the brain. Okay, so if you look at the thalamus here, right inside it is the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus controls body temperature, thirst, hunger, and emotions. The thalamus is intimately connected with the hippocampus, and it receives direct as well as indirect projections from the hippocampus, and in turn projects directly and indirectly to the hippocampus. The major function or role of the thalamus is motor functions. The thalamus plays a part in motor control by providing positive reinforcement of movements initiated in the motor cortex. So now we're going to talk about the pituitary gland, which is right there. Okay? The pituitary gland is a small but very important controlling hormone level. The pituitary gland is small but very important. It controls hormone levels as well as the functions of all the other endocrine system glands. The pituitary gland is a very small pea-sized gland that sits right behind your nasal passages. Next, we have the cerebellum right here that helps coordinate body movement and maintain balance and equilibrium. Any disruption of the cerebellum or any of its connections to other parts of the nervous system can happen in a variety of ways. For instance, the cerebellum can sustain damage due to a head injury, stroke, brain tumor, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, Huntington's disease, any infections, barbiturates, alcohol use, heavy metal poisoning, lead, and even mercury. Some diagnoses that affect the cerebellum include autism spectrum disorder, dyslexia, anxiety disorders, and even schizophrenia. Okay, so that concludes my discussion today about the brain. I hope you enjoyed what you've learned. I do appreciate you taking your time to watch this video. And remember, the frontal lobe is not fully mature until your mid-20s. And any act that you do outside of your body or anything that you put into your body can affect your brain in some way, shape, or form. So be careful, make good, smart decisions, and until next time, thank you.